Hi, I'm Anshulika. I am a creative entrepreneur and a film producer. I want to talk about two things today. One is being okay with not having a straight career path in life, which I think signifies a lot of our fellows here as well. The second thing I want to talk about is the power of storytelling and also really understand what is the story of storytelling? Where does it come from? So let's begin with the first thing. So I have often called myself a rolling stone. I studied English literature, did not go and do the usual engineering and MBA, and but I still landed in McKinsey somehow. And from there, I did what my colleague today must have said, which is pick a problem to solve and not a profession. So the problem that I was gnawing at me and I really wanted to solve was lack of access of funding to creative artists. So my first entrepreneurial venture was Wishberry, which was India's first crowdfunding platform for creative artists, and it helped, thousands of creative projects raise about 15 crores from many people across the world. Now, during this decade long journey, I obviously met a lot of artists. I can actually claim probably that I've met the most number of artists in the country, ranging from filmmakers to musicians to writers to dancers, graphic designers, photographers. And what united all of them was the power they had, the superhuman ability of telling a story through the medium of art. So, the one particular medium of art that really interested me was films because of the large scale impact it has on human consciousness. And I said, okay, what's next? Let's deep dive into films and make some. So that led me to extend Wishberry's production house. And we ended up making 7 films. And I only wanted to focus on making cinema that carried a social message with itself, but in a very entertaining manner so that it doesn't doze people off. While doing that, I got even more mesmerized that yes, people watch films and it impacts them, it shapes their thinking. So naturally, my curiosity led to where did this entire filmmaking come from? Why do people take it so seriously? Why have we made gods of our actors and directors? And why are we so obsessed with films? Where does it all start? So, today, I want to take the opportunity to take you back to India's storytelling heritage, where it all started from. I'm going to tell you the story of storytelling, hopefully in a fun way. So, a long, long time ago, when India had rishi munis and sages, they spent a lot of their time in accumulating a lot of wisdom about the world, how life works, and the morality of life, and many things. And when they gathered all this, they codified these learnings, these life lessons, into what we know today as the Vedas, which is the Rig Veda and the Sam Veda and Yajur Veda and the Atharv Veda. But now these learnings had to be also learnt by the gods and the kings and the queens. And they looked at these books and they saw the verses and the texts and they got bored. Like all of us, nobody likes studying, nor did the gods. So they went to Brahma, the creator, and they said, can you find out a more entertaining way for us to really learn these teachings? Because this is incredibly boring to go through all these Vedas. And so Brahma said, all right, let's call in Rishi Bharat Muni. He was given this task of taking all the learnings of the Vedas and create an entertaining manner in which all the gods can learn these learnings. And then what we don't talk much about is the fifth Veda that emerged, which is called the Natya Shastra. What Rishi Muni did was he took myths from Rig Veda, he took sentiments from Atharv Veda, he took melody from Sam Veda, and gestures from Yajur Veda. And all this culminated into Natya Shastra, which today forms the foundation of every art form. Today, even it is even relevant today. So whether it is a dance, whether it's a performing arts and theater, or whether it is a movie, it all traces its roots back to some of the keys that Natya Shastra provides. And what popular culture believes is that entertainment is the main purpose of arts and culture. But Natya Shastra had a bigger purpose. Its purpose was to stir up people's emotions, make people think, transport them into a different world and connect with themselves and their conscience, and really sit down and ask questions of morality and philosophy. And all this for what? To make the world a better place to live in. And even today, this is relevant. The storytelling is relevant of the Natya Shastra learnings are even today because stories are the best ways, even today, to spread awareness about social causes, right? Data, statistics can never achieve what stories can. And to give you an example or a few examples, I'm sure many of you have seen this picture. But before this picture, we had a lot of statistics about Sudan's hunger crisis. But I'm sure none of you will remember what that number is, how many people were dying out of hunger. And then there is a photographer that published this image, which is of an almost dying child with a vulture waiting for it to, become food for the vulture. And after this was published in New York Times is when the world paid attention towards the hunger crisis of Sudan. So this photo talks about the gravity of the issue and not the numbers, because numbers dehumanize a problem, but stories don't do that. Now, this did not just lead to an emotional impact on people. It actually had financial impact because the international aid towards Sudan really increased after this photograph. Everybody from everyone living in homes wanted to contribute towards this cause. The next example is of a book. I'm sure a lot of you know about Harry Potter. While it is the best-selling fantasy novel, ultimately, it's the best way to teach children about friendship, loyalty, facing their fears, right? I mean, if they were to theoretically read about all these topics, they will be incredibly bored. So the best way to engage them with all the moral learnings was a book. And films which have a much larger impact, and one of my favorite films, Tare Zameen Par, made everybody question parenting and the rat race and how we ignore the special gifts of children. At least we have something like this today that children can make their parents see and ask them to not behave like one, right? So, this is the impact of storytelling. And this led me to realize that, but India doesn't have storytellers as much as we should, as much as the engineers are, as much as the business managers are. We have zero storytelling. When India has the legacy of Natya Shastra, can't it lead the world into a higher awakening, a spirituality? Because we know how to entertain you with stories and make you realize what you should actually be thinking about. I mean, hell, even the engineers and the business managers need storytelling to sell their products, right? So we have to do something about a storytelling school. And that obviously then led me to my second problem that I wanted to solve, which is having a writing school in the country. So Lakshmi and I got together and said, okay, let's launch Writers Inc. with a lot of help from the community. And what came about is India's premier skill building initiative in storytelling. Now, it's just been 2 years. And in 2 years, what we've done is we've started with a course on film writing. And our aim is to not just have this writing school create great stories. I mean, obviously, that will be the end product of a writing school. But ideally, the aim of the school is to make writing a very visible career. You know how engineering is a visible career? Like you get into an IIT and then you know exactly how your life is going to shape from there. You'll get into this particular company, and then after this, you'll do that. That is how visible we have to make the writing profession so that nobody gets scared of this profession, right? Your parents probably don't want you to get into this profession because there is no visibility. There is no pathway of how does it become a career, and we all have bills to pay, so that has to be solved as a problem. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a world-class education of storytelling in India. We want to be the channel between the industry and the writers to kind of, meet and obviously create a nurturing community. So since 2022, we've run 2 feature film screenwriting labs where we've developed 60 screenplays and we've put them in front of the industry. People have pitched all of these screenplays to lots of OTT platforms, studios, producers, and in the end, they've gotten a lot of opportunities from them. We've had 75 companies participate We've had almost 90% of our scripts reviewed by them, and now 25% of them are on the way to get produced, and not just get produced, but also those writers have been hired, because employment is really important. A visible employment and a regular employment in this particular field is very important. So, Writers Inc. has a very unique proposition. It is a school and it's also a lab. This is how we do it. So, you come in to learn the fundamentals of screenwriting, because the first program is a feature film program. And the curriculum has been designed by a global faculty who also teach this thing too. In sitting in India, you can learn from the global faculty. And whatever theory, whatever the fundamentals you learn on screenwriting, you also apply it on your script. And by the end of the lab, you come out with a full script, which serves as your resume in the industry. The spectrum of topics that you learn ranges from how to structure your story, how to develop your character, how to develop your theme. How do you even take feedback when you take this story to the world and people have questions about it? Because this is also a very important life skill, taking and giving feedback. And we call a lot of guest speakers who come and not only talk about their process of screenwriting, but they also talk about how did they make it to where they are. How do you navigate this career and, possibly reach the levels where they have? So, Writers Inc. is dedicated to putting Indian storytellers on the map of the world. We want to use storytelling for impact and entertainment, and hopefully provide a visible path. And some of you who are sitting in the audience, the students, I hope you will take this profession very seriously, because this is truly a superpower to change somebody's mind about a topic. And to end this with the quote of the ultimate storyteller, Steve Jobs: the most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Thank you.